afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this broadcast. This is All Things Black Politics, live here from Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Leon Rock. And guess what? We're talking again politics, and more politics. And actually, we're talking about the politics of Boston, Massachusetts, and talking about actually some politics in Washington, D.C. and places in between. Today, you have me on the broadcast. Next week, we have State Representative Russell Holmes is going to be on the broadcast here live on All Things Black Politics. That should be an exciting broadcast, by the way, because we've never had on All Things Black Politics, even though he has been on Boston Black News and Boston Praise Radio and TV. But I'm excited to have Russell Holmes coming on the program as well, because we're going to cover everything imaginable with Russell Holmes. Well, hold on and wait a minute. I hope you can hear me live here from Washington, D.C. And actually, we have a conversation for you. Oh my goodness, there's a lot going on in Boston and in Massachusetts and around the country. But let me talk about what's going on in Washington, D.C. first, and then I will change gears and come back to Boston. Hold on. Yes, and wait a minute. Stacey Abrams is making news. Yes, you remember Stacey Abrams, who ran for governor of Georgia and actually was so instrumental in making sure that the United States Senate is Democratic because of the fact that she was actually working on the ground with so many other people to make sure that Black folks in particular, but everybody that was progressive or is progressive, came out to vote in that significant election for the United States Senate in Georgia, in which two people were able, the Democrats, to win to actually take over the Senate away from the Republicans. Yeah. Anyway, Stacey Abrams has been chosen, get this, has been chosen by Howard University to be the first chair for race and politics. Did you hear me? First chair of Howard University for race and politics. Stacey Abrams is the former two-time Georgia gubernatorial candidate, and she's joining the faculty of Howard University here in Washington, D.C. The school announced, yes, just Wednesday. Abrams is a former Democratic leader in Georgia's House of Representatives and will serve as the inaugural Ronald W. Walters Endowed Chair for Race and Black Politics. I'm loving this, my good friends. Howard University is creating a department, and she is going to run the Department of Race and Politics. Yes, in the nation's capital at Howard University. If you know anything about Howard University, you know that Howard University is considered in many ways like Harvard University. This is essentially the Black, Harvard University in many ways. Well, Stacey Abrams is taking on that new role and will lead research across the university on political issues impacting, yes, Black Americans, African Americans. In addition, she'll be working with other faculty members on these issues, the university said in a news release. She will also lead the Ronald W. Walters speaking series, in which she will bring speakers to the historically Black college on a range of diverse topics. Yeah, the 49-year-old will begin her multi-year appointment starting in September. Hold on, there's more. Abrams entered the national spotlight nearly 5 years ago, becoming the first Black woman to earn, get this, a major party nomination for governor in the U.S. She ran again as, wanted to be governor in 2022, but lost to the Republican incumbent Brian Kemp. Howard University president Wayne A. Frederick emphasized that Abrams' appointment will not only honor Walter's legacy, but will continue to expand it among students and the overall Howard community. Stacey Abrams has proven herself an essential voice and an eager participant in protecting the American democracy. There's no question about that. Not just for certain populations, but for everyone with a fundamental right to make their voice heard, says the president of Howard University. You remember Walters, who died in 2010, was a professor at Howard University for over 25 years and was a leading scholar and activist and expert on issues surrounding race and politics. His dedication to activism and politics was influential in organizing one of the country's first lunch counter sit-ins back in Kansas City, Missouri, back in 1958, according to the Washington Post. Walters served as the campaign manager and consultant for Reverend Jesse Jackson during his 2 presidential campaign days. Oh, there's more. Wait a minute. His focus on African American leadership had shaped so much of how we have been seen in terms of leadership over the past 30 years. Abrams told the Washington Post the campus announced the creation of this chair position back in 2020 after his wife, Patricia Turner Walters, gifted the university with a couple of personal collections of African American art valued at $2.5 million, according to the university. Abrams' appointment at Howard University is the latest of high-profile faculty hires at the university and has made Howard University stand out. In 2021, Howard announced that New York Times reporter Nicole Hannah Jones, along with writer alumnus Brother Coates, would be joining the faculty. Earlier that year, the university announced the Felicia Rashad, who would serve as dean of the Fine Arts School, named after the late actor Chadwick Boseman, a Howard alum. Wow, what is going on in Washington, D.C. and Howard University? I'm loving what they're doing. I'm loving what they're doing, my good friends. Well, let's turn back to Boston, my hometown, Boston, Massachusetts. The Black population, let's talk, not necessarily politics, but it is politics in many ways. The Black population of Greater Boston has grown. It's more diverse. Yeah. GBH is reporting on this. Yeah, GBH is reporting on how the Greater Boston community now has the largest share of foreign-born Black residents in the United States of America. Did you hear me? Greater Boston now has the largest share of foreign-born Black residents in the United States. I'm going to drill down on this for a second, if you don't mind, because it has to be drilled down. When I say it needs to be drilled down, we need to talk about something that, the mayor has appointed a reparations commission or committee to essentially review reparations and what should be done for Black folks living in Boston with reparations. Well, here comes the question now. Foreign-born Black residents in Boston are the largest share of Black residents in the whole United States. So, do they have a right? Folks that are coming in 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, 20 years into the state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and in Boston, do they have the right for reparations? We're going to drill down on that. But before we do, let's talk a moment about Mark Hirsch, who wrote an article over at the GBH, and he indicated that the Black population in Greater Boston has grown. It's more diverse than ever in the city of Boston, and it is no longer its demographic epicenter. There are three key findings in a new report out last Thursday from the Boston Indicators, a research arm of the Boston Foundation. Researchers like Luke Schuster, who co-authored the report, says that it is important to understand how different groups within every growing Black population has vastly different experiences. The report says that in recent years, the Greater Boston Black population has become one of the most diverse in the entire country, with a wide range of ancestries from the West Indies region, Caribbean, and Africa. I'm not hating on people coming from anywhere, but I have a special interest because guess what? My grandmother and grandfather actually are from the West Indies, the Caribbean, Barbados. So they came, to Boston in the early 1900s. When I say early, I mean early 1900s. Well, guess what? A whole bunch of folks have been coming ever since from the West Indies, Caribbean, and Africa. And the report finds that only about a quarter of Black people in the region use deceptors that indicate that some of their families of multi-generational non-immigrant backgrounds, whereas nationally that figure is nearly 2/3. What does that all mean? It means that Black folks in Boston that have been in Boston for many years, maybe even centuries of history in Boston, have essentially been taken over in many ways by West Indians, Caribbeans, and Africans. I'm not hating on any of those groups by any stretch of the imagination, even though in the African American community of Boston, there is a certain schism, and I don't understand it myself. There's a certain schism about people that come from other parts of the world and coming into Boston, and people aren't feeling it for some reason. And I don't get that, my good friends. I don't get it. Maybe you do, but I don't get it. Afro-Latino population growth is really a key part of what's been happening, says Schuster, executive director of the Boston Indicators, pointing out that the influx of Afro-Latino people from Puerto Rico and Dominican, we have seen in both the city of Boston and the region of Greater Boston overall that the Afro-Latino population doubled in the last 20 years, just from 2000 to 2020. Did you hear that? The Afro-Latino population, from Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic has doubled. At-large city councilor Julia Mejia, a first Afro-Latina to sit on the Boston City Council, was part of the earlier wave of immigrants from the Dominican Republic. When it came, when she says that when I came here in the 70s, I came here at the height of the busing era. And what was really interesting to me was that that issue was black versus whites, Mejia said, but Latinos in particular were not uplifted in that fight and received, yeah, a go back to where you came from mentality from a lot of her neighbors that were white and would not want me to be here. Says Julia Mejia. By the way, we have not had Julia Mejia on All Things Black Politics. We plan to invite her on. Dynamic young lady, by the way. Dynamic politician. We need to get her on All Things Black Politics. She said that racist attitudes still exist in Greater Boston and that we have a lot of work to do to heal from that. The report, let's get back to the report. The report says that Boston's area overall black population growth has been substantial, climbing to the 17th largest metropolitan black population in the country in 2020, with just over 480,000 people after the addition of more than 100,000 black residents since 2010. Since 2010, my good friends. Yeah. A lot of changes going on in Boston. My question is, water please. My question is, has everything changed yet nothing has changed? Did you hear me? Has everything changed yet nothing has changed? That's my thought. I could be wrong. I took some heat last week. A lot of people watched the program last week. I was there live and actually in Boston. I was there in Boston live. Yay. And I took a little bit of heat. And when I said I took a little bit of heat, folks wanted to know, was I hating on Boston? Because there is limited resource, particularly in the Mattapan and Dorchester area for food. And if you want to go out at a late night, is there food around? Is there places to go? And I raised concern on that broadcast that going up to Dorchester and Mattapan and other parts of my hometown, I didn't see any major changes over the years. Listen, I've been gone out of Boston for over 30 years. I have plenty of family up in Boston. And from time to time, I do come back. And when I do come back, I wonder out loud, has anything changed? Why do I say that? It's because guess what? The numbers are changing. Yeah, the numbers are changing. As the GBH report shows, the greater Boston area has the largest share of foreign-born blacks. Yeah, foreign-born black residents in, the whole United States. That's including Washington, D.C. That's including the nation's capital, which in many ways is a migration capital. Folks come here from around the world. But at the same time, in the greater Boston area, or greater Boston, the largest share of foreign-born blacks are in Boston, Massachusetts. Pretty interesting, my good friends. Now, I asked the question out loud, has anything changed? Has anything changed? Maybe you know. Maybe you can give me an understanding to has anything changed. This is All Things Black Politics. I'm Leon Rock, and I'm talking about the migration issue. How many folks are in Boston now that are from other countries? And is there a racial overtone, internal racial overtone to the numbers of Black folks that have moved from other parts of the world and into Boston, Massachusetts? Well, pretty interesting stuff. But let's get back to politics. Well, here's an interesting story that's going on in Boston, Massachusetts. And that is actually, I was watching a program last week on Boston Black News and Boston Praise Radio and TV. And I watched in amazement the Reverend Maynard Culpepper, who ran for state senate last year, has established an organization called the Black Men's Political Task Force. And when I say in amazement, I'm in good amazement. Celebrate him for creating that Boston Black Men's Political Task Force. Yes, Reverend Maynard Culpepper was on Boston Black News and Boston Praise Radio and TV last week, and he was talking about how, well, he ran for Senate last fall to represent Dorchester. Yeah. He noticed, as he indicated, a significant lack of Black men participating in all levels of politics in the city of Boston. He determined that he needed to assist in closing the gap. And he wanted to lead the effort in forming a new organization called the Black Men's Political Task Force to increase the number of Black men engaging in local politics. He formed the organization to provide political training, voter rights training. Yes. Culpepper, president of the organization, said he wants to lobby for the appointment of Black men in positions of leadership and government at all levels. Yeah, actually, as well, the Bay State Banner has been covering this story, as has Boston Black News. The task force currently has over 40 members from around Boston area who are passionate about the organization's purpose and message. Culpepper said the task force is looking to propose a new deal, citing the Brookings Institute article by Camille Pizzette, advocating for specific policies and programs tailored to uplifting Black men and boys. Here on that. I'm glad that he's wanting to do that work, my good friends. That is important. That is important, my good friends. This is All Things Black Politics. This is Leon Rock, and we're talking about the politics of Boston. And we're talking about, actually, Maynard Culpepper, Reverend Maynard Culpepper, establishing a Black Men's Political Task Force. Hold on. Only 28% of Black men have bachelor's degrees or higher and are also more likely to experience unemployment and lower pay compared to other demographics. The Black men are 5 times more likely than white men to be incarcerated and overrepresented in the prison population, according to the Brookings Institute. When you think about where we are and you think about the excluded, underrepresented, devalued, and you look at our place in society, we believe that the Black men, that we must advocate for Black men and participate more meaningfully, says Paul Pepper. Louis Elisa, chair of the task force, said that members want elected officials to know that there are qualified and capable Black men in the city and the state to do the job. Well, we agree with that. No question, no doubt. I'm looking forward to seeing what this new Black men's political task force is able to do. You know, actually, last week when I was in Boston, I was talking about the talented 10th. You know what the talented 10th is, right? The talented 10th is essentially the amount of Black folks that actually graduate from colleges and universities, do the right thing, are successful in their own rights. That talented 10th tends to move out of Black neighborhoods. The talented 10th moved out of Boston and actually are living in suburbia and have essentially allowed for Black folks, particularly Black men and Black women, to catch for themselves. We have to stop that, my good friends. We got to stop this whole migration of Black folks out of the inner city and into suburbia comfort, while Black folks in low income situations are fetching for themselves. That's a fact, my good friends. Black folks in poverty are fetching for themselves. Now I ask out loud, will this Black political task force engage lower income populations, lower income Black folks, into the conversation about community-based organizing at the grassroots level? You know, back in the day, 1960s and the 70s, that's what occurred. People would organize, folks would join, but it was not a case where the elite only were engaged in organizing. I remember the old Black Panther Party back in the day. I know I go back, but I remember the Black Panther Party many years ago would have these political education classes. And folks in public housing communities, assisted housing communities, low income neighborhoods would go to the Black Panther Party and actually get an education about how to organize. It wasn't a group of Black folks, successful as they may be, suggesting what lower income folks needed to do. It was actually people that had a conscience, people that were interested in building community, people that were interested in building neighborhood, and not thinking that the power elite, the talented 10th, had all the answers. The answers, particularly around politics and how to engage and re-engage the community, came from the people themselves. Fact. Do you know that in Boston, it has the lowest level of voting? I'm going to say this again, and let me rephrase it. Boston has the lowest level of Black voter participation than any other city in the nation. Did you hear me? Black folks don't vote in Boston. Well, I'm not telling you anything new, but I am telling you something new, and that is that Black folks don't vote, but it's bigger than what we thought. Black folks don't vote at the lowest level of any major city in America. That's a sad situation. I'm hoping that this, Black Men's Political Task Force will attempt to address that issue in real time. Yeah, it's great to have people appointed to positions of power, but you got to get the right people, Black men, in positions of power to do the right thing. See, because I've seen how that works. We've all seen how that works. Clarence Thomas. Well, some people would say he's not a Black man, but he is physically a Black man. Would you like Clarence Thomas to continue to be in the position that he is? Do you want Clarence Thomas clones in positions of power in Boston? I don't think so. That's not hating on Clarence Thomas, it's just telling the truth. Would you like that guy, Senator Scott? And I'm not attacking either one. They got their politics, and it's not my type of politics. But would you like Senator Scott, clones of Senator Scott, in positions of power in Boston? Probably not. So what I'm saying is that organizing a Black political task force is one thing related to Black men, and getting Black men appointed to positions of power is important, but you got to get the right people in position of power to do the right thing. This is All Things Black Politics. I'm Leon Rock, and I'm telling you how I see it. And by the way, you may see it different. You can always call in. You see the number. Let me see if it's on that side. No, the number is on that side, whatever side. You see it right there. You see it. Yeah, right there. There's the number. Yep. You can call that number if you can see it. There you go. Call that number. You can get in the conversation. Again, this is All Things Black Politics. This is Leon Rock, and I'm talking all things politics in such a major way. Hold on and wait a minute. Let's transfer over to Boston for a minute, away from Boston, but in Boston. Hey, guess what? Last week, if I'm not mistaken, Tennessee representative, you know that brother with the big afro that got kicked out of the Tennessee legislature? Yeah, he was in Boston just recently over at Harvard Kennedy School, Institute of Politics. And he was talking about Boston in so many ways. Yeah, Tennessee Representative Pearson says that Boston inspired him, but the city has to work. Yeah, it has a lot of work to do in regards to racial justice. Yeah, State Representative Justin Pearson, one of Tennessee's House of Representatives that was expelled from the chamber and then reinstated, told an enthusiastic crowd on Wednesday that Boston's civil rights history inspired him, but the city still has way too many injustices. See, so I'm not the only one that is looking from the outside, looking in, even though I'm a Bostonian in heart and mind. But I'm not the only one that sees it. Pearson appeared at the stage at Harvard University's Kennedy School alongside of anti-gun violence activist David Hogg, a Harvard senior and survivor of the 2018 Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, shooting that killed 17 people. Yeah, the Democrat State Representative Pearson, Justin Jones, and Gloria Johnson had protested on March 30th inside the Tennessee House chamber against the Republicans' leadership refusal to hear arguments on gun safety legislation. Pearson and Jones, who are both Black, were expelled earlier this month and then reinstated by local officials in their district. Johnson, who was white, was spared expulsion by one single vote. During Wednesday's discussion, as reported in, by the way, GBH, during Wednesday's discussion at Harvard, Pearson and Hogg both spoke on the importance of pursuing gun control legislation, here, and supporting candidates, including President Biden, who will make an issue of that priority of gun control. Pearson delivered a stirring oratory. And by the way, I'm impressed with this brother. This brother ain't no joke. He can speak well, for sure. Actually, when I heard him speaking, in many ways, his oratory skills were similar in many ways to Malcolm X. I'm loving his oratory skills. Yeah. Pearson, as I indicated, delivered a stirring oratory that brought many in the audience to their feet. In an interview before the start of the program, Pearson told reporters that he draws some of his oratory inspiration from earlier generations of Black leaders in Boston, where he once lived. You know, Dr. King, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X spent time in Boston, and I was like, what is it about this place? Yeah, he said jokingly. Pearson came to Boston in 2017 after graduating from Bowdoin College in Maine and took a job as a community organizer in Year Up, a nonprofit workforce training program for economically disadvantaged youth. I love Year Up, by the way. I got to say that. Year Up is amazing. Yeah, Pearson said that he lived in Roxbury, where Malcolm X lived with his sister, and learned about the Black culture that was there. There's more. the Bay State banner and all types of things and their importance, Pearson said. But Boston has really been extraordinarily helpful in shaping who I am as a person and as a leader. Well, thank you, Roxbury. Pearson also became member of the Boston's Union United Methodist Church in the South End. Actually, I was there just a couple of weeks ago to celebrate Mel King. Yeah. Which he still attends virtually from his home in Memphis. Union Church is a great church, he said. The reason I went to Union is I walked in and it said, this has to be what heaven looks like. It's one of the most diverse churches I've ever been in, and people across various social economic statuses. I can verify that. But Pearson said, and this is the important thing, Pearson said that the city of Boston itself has a long way to go to bridge the wide gap in economic inequality among the races and ethnic groups. He pointed to the often cited 2015 Federal Reserve report that concluded that the median net worth of white households in the greater Boston was $250,000. But for Black folks, Black families, check this out. And you've heard it a number of times here on Boston Black News, here on Boston Praise Radio and TV, and out of my mouth. Yeah. The dollar value of Black families in Boston is $8. $8, my good friends. What can you do with $8? Hey, you can't even, if you are a McDonald's fan, you can't even get a Happy Meal for $8. Well, Happy Meal and some coffee. You can't get that for $8 now. Here. People, he says, need to get proximate to the poor folks in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan and create change in this place, too, because there are ways, too many injustices, particularly economic, that are connected to social and racial injustice of the history of Boston, Pearson said. Well, he's saying what I just said. He's saying exactly what I just said. And that is, and I tried to connect it in some ways to the new Black Men's Political Task Force, that it's great to create a task force, but if you ain't working in the neighborhoods, if you ain't working in the poorest of the poorest of the poorest of the poorest communities, public and assisted housing communities, you ain't doing nothing, as Michael Jackson would say. You ain't doing nothing. People need to get proximate to the poor folks in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and help create change. And that's community organizing. Anything less is less. He made the same point in his main presentation before the audience of about 200 at Harvard's Institute of Politics. He nailed it, said George Ship Greenridge, who is among the audience. Well, that's what's going on. And that's what Representative Pearson said. And I'm in agreement with Brother Pearson. Boston has some issues with racial, essentially segregation. Oh, there's a whole bunch of folks now that say Boston is not racially segregated anymore. That's ridiculous. I was going to say another word, but can't do that. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous to say that Boston has become woke. It is not woke. Please give me a break. Anyway, enough of that. Greater Boston's having a lot of challenges. Boston's Black residents are mainly foreign born. The highest incidence of foreign born Black folks in the country. And I'm not hating on folks that come from other parts of the country. Actually, as I said, we're all immigrants. We're all immigrants. Oh, on another topic, and I got to cover this because guess what? It's news. Black Democrats in Boston have, now I'm going to break this down for you just for a second. You know what a super PAC is? A super PAC is a political action committee. They raise money and give it to other candidates. They sway political opinion. Well, there's a new super PAC dedicated to electing Black Democratic candidates to local offices. Yeah, and the founder is pledging to fill the void in arising from the state party's lack of vigor in supporting new office seekers. Did you hear that? It's hard for candidates of color to raise money, and in a world where there is a $1,000 campaign donation limit, it makes it even harder to have a well-funded campaign for candidates of color. First-time candidates of color, said former, he's not former, he's the founder, Reynolds Graves, a 34-year-old political consultant. Yeah, Reynolds Graves, who worked on Harvard professor Danielle Allen's recent gubernatorial race. And by the way, we have to salute Danielle Allen because she was on our program just a couple of weeks ago, and she was discussing the same thing. Graves, who worked on Harvard professor Danielle Allen's recent gubernatorial campaign and state representative John Santiago's 2021 run for Boston mayor, says limits of campaign contributions favor political veterans over relative newcomers. I can attest to that. In a declaration of purpose filed earlier this month, the 1866 Action Fund Independent Expenditure Political Action Committee, that's a long word, words, indicated that it would deliver paid media and voter engagement initiatives to local candidates with small teams and small bank accounts. Here. Now that's what I'm talking about. Thank you very much, Brother Graves, and thank you very much, Danielle Allen. She's doing a great job too. Graves declined to disclose the Super PAC's fundraising goals, financial commitment, or leading members, saying that only that the organization would be steered and supported by a team of mostly Black leaders, some of whom wish to remain anonymous and others who will reveal themselves later. Okay, I liked everything until that point. Come clean and tell us who's behind the PAC, Political Action Committee. Come clean. See, because we can't say that things are wrong and continue to do wrong things too. Everybody should come clean on that one. Yeah, I'm sure you agree with that. Come clean. Despite record funding numbers and Black candidates in high-profile races across the nation, Graves said down ballot candidates typically lack large, wealthy networks and quickly max out individual contributions to small groups and families and friends. We agree with that. Actually, this is consistent, excuse me again, with Danielle Allen's recent gubernatorial campaign and her recent conversation with us on all things Black politics a couple of weeks ago, where she was saying the same thing. We're going to invite Brother Graves on our program to dig deeper on this conversation, on this particular issue. Reynolds Graves, 34 years old, a young man doing the right thing for political action committees and political action groups. It's about time that we organize strategically. It's about time. And I salute Brother Reynolds Graves for his work. Actually, I can't wait to meet him. We're going to get him on the program as well. Well, hold on. There's more. There is more, my good friends. Danielle Graves says that they are very focused on political establishment and the status quo. They are not focused on growing the vote of body politic through diverse communities that are underserved or communities that don't typically participate in the democratic or election or electoral process. He's saying that about traditional politicians. And that's in keeping with what I said when I was mentioning about the Black Men's Political Task Force. I am all for the Black Men's Political Task Force. Congratulations, Reverend Maynard Culpepper, for establishing it. My cautionary concern is that when we organize, we don't forget the lowest of the lowest of the lowest low income. Now, I'm just talking about income status. The lowest income status are Black folks that are in public and assisted housing communities across the country. We want to make sure that in Boston, Massachusetts, we address it head on and actually organize, build the capacity of people in public and assisted housing. It's something that is of concern to me because I grew up in public housing. I grew up in Orchard Park and then, other places in between in Boston. And growing up there were a number of folks, the political class, that would engage folks to register and to vote. It has not happened to the level that it needs to be in the African American community of Boston as of late. We need to do better, my good friends, and I'm hoping that this Black Men's Task Force will do the right thing. Actually, the Black Men's Task Force should actually have a conversation with this brother this brother Reynolds Graves, and actually organize a effort between Reynolds Graves and Black Political Task Force or Black Men's Political Task Force to do some action organizing in low-income sections of Boston's Black community. And I'm going to say it again, in Orchard Gardens, formerly Orchard Park, in Columbia Point. Well, the Columbia Point is no longer Columbia Point, right? Over in, they've switched it all around. They've made it mixed income communities. Well, those that aren't mixed income communities, and even in mixed income communities, it's poorest of poor. One third, one third, one third. One third of the population is the poorest of poor. And I say that, that's not to insult people that are in public housing. I grew up in public housing. It's not to insult, it's to say, work with the folks that live in public and assisted housing and do the right thing. Organize. A lot of people ask me, hey, what is different between Boston and Washington, D.C.? Organizing. That's it. That's all. And by the way, that's it. That's all. All things Black politics. I'm Leon Rock, and we have had the conversation today about everything politics from Washington, D.C. to Boston, Massachusetts, and places in between. I appreciate you all coming in. Next week, we're going to have State Representative Russell Holmes. And then the week after, we're going to have an interesting politician that I think you all will actually, I know you will enjoy. He's not from Boston. He's from another state, but he